Marcus,
Sebastian.
thank you so much for visiting us.
Well, I am.
Have an appointment with us.
I'm visiting Germany.
You're
right?
visiting Germany, and we are visiting you in Germany, in
Thank
Cologne.
you so much.
Thank you so much for being here and being with us. You are making a remake, let's say, from pretty much the first adventure game, Colossal Cave Adventure.
This is true.
In VR. How did this come about?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, so, I've never made a game before in my life. I'm not a game designer in my past life, This is all new to me. Before this, I was a jeweler, making jewelry for Harry Winston, Van Cleef, and Hippolyta, a bunch of really famous jewelry companies. I had a factory in New York City and had a bunch of workers. And I've been married for 18 years, and after that 18 years, divorce. And from that divorce, I moved back to my parents' house in New Jersey. And I got very nostalgic for video games and Commodore 64s just by being there. Like, I just brought back all those memories, being in my room and these kind of things. So I went and on Facebook, I found a Commodore 64, bought one, was missing the power supply, bought a second one. Before you know it, I have 1,000 games. One day on Facebook Marketplace, I saw the original King's Quest on the PC Junior for sale. And I'm like, man, I gotta have that. That's like something I have to have. Because I always remember Sierra and things like that. We all did from the 80s and 90s. And so I messaged the lady. I go, hey, is this game available? And she goes, yes, it is. I go, well, how much do you want for it? She goes, how much do you offer? I go, $80. She goes, nah, that's too cheap. I got like 3-4 boxes of this stuff. And I'm like, ooh. And she's like, so how much do you want? How much do you want? No reply. So I had a second Facebook account. So I switched to that account and I messaged her. I go, hey, is this game available? And she goes, well, yes, it is. I go, well, how much do you want? She goes, what do you offer? I go, $200. And she's like, okay, sold. I'm like, yes. And then she said, gave me the address. I looked on my Google map and it was like 250 miles to go get it. I'm like, man, I don't go anywhere 250 miles to go pick up the game. But for some reason, this game, I was like, I have to have this. Hopped in the car, drove all the way over there. I get out of the car, she sees me and she's like, hey, aren't you the guy from the other Facebook account? I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm here, I want to buy it. So I give her the money, I take everything back home, and I lay out all the games. I take a picture, and I belong to this group that was called PC Big Box Group. And I posted a picture, and this guy Enrico Ricciardi messages me, and he was like a famous collector, and he messages me saying, oh, Marcus, don't tell nobody, but you have something I want. And I'm like, oh, okay. It was Adventures in Serenia. I had the original Adventures in Serenia, and I'm like, nah, man, I'm not selling the game. I know these two are rare. I'm gonna hold on to it. So there's another guy, Amiga Bill. You ever hear Amiga Bill?
I think I heard of it.
Yeah, Amiga Bill. So I belong to his Amiga group. So I go to his Amiga group and he's like, hey, next week is the Vintage Computer Festival. I'm going to give a presentation. So that got me thinking, maybe I should give a presentation. So I knew the vice president. I called up Jeff. I go, hey, Jeff, I just found these two really rare games, King's Quest and Adventures in Serenia. And you guys always talk about the computer game, the computers, but never the games. I said, why don't I give a little presentation about Sierra Online and these two games that I found? He's like, hey, Marcus, that's a great idea. Oh, by the way, Ken Williams, the designer of the game, will also be presenting. So we'll have you lead into his presentation. Now, you got to understand, I know Sierra, I know King's Quest, but I don't know it enough to really give a presentation in front of thousands of people. So I start freaking out. I'm like, oh my God. So I call up and message Enrico, I'm really in big trouble. I have to give this presentation. I don't know enough. What should I do? He goes, first of all, why'd they pick you? And I'm like, well, here I am. So he goes, well, I know Ken Williams. I said, oh. He goes, why don't I make an introduction? I go, hey, okay. So next thing you know, I'm getting a Facebook message, hey, I'm Ken Williams. I'm like, hello? I'm like, so I have to give this presentation. I want to sound professional, and I want to make sure I give a good presentation. He goes, well, I just wrote a book. I said, wow, okay. He said, why don't I send you a copy? So he sends me a copy of the book. I get the book. I just read the chapter about King's Quest and the adventures in Serenia. I go, I give the presentation, and Ken, it was virtual. Like, I wasn't physically there, but Ken was virtually there. But I would stay in touch with him, like, every once in a while I'll ping him like on the instant messenger, and he would sometimes reply, sometimes not reply. But I finished reading the book. About, I don't know, a couple weeks later I finished reading the book, and I go, hey Ken, I just finished your book. He goes, what'd you think? I go, wouldn't it be great if you made a comeback like Steve Jobs did at Apple? And he starts smiling. He goes, working on something. I go, I know you don't know this, but as a jeweler, I use 3D software to make jewelry designs. If you need any assets or models, I can model for you if you need an artist. He goes, oh, I need an artist. He goes, have you ever made a video game before? I go, no, never. He goes, oh, that's all right, don't worry about it. I'll be in touch with you in a few days. 2 days later, he's like, hey, Marcus, what are you up to? I go, anything you want, big boss. I'm like, ready to go. So, that's pretty much the start, how I met them. And now the story, what I understand from Ken and Roberta was that when we were talking about the game, he was thinking of a educational game, teaching programming. And he told Roberta, and then Roberta slept on it. She's like, yeah, okay, educational game. Next morning she wakes up and she's like, for some reason Colossal came into her mind because, the story, that's the first game she played, and that was the inspiration for Mystery House, which basically launched Sierra Online. And so, the next day Ken was like, do you know Colossal Cave? And I go, it sounds familiar. He was like, oh, do a little research on it. And then when I researched it, get lamps stuck right away. You're standing in front of a building. All those things started to come back to me because I remember Zork and this, that, and the other. Oh, Colossal Cave, yeah. He said, I'm not sure I really want to do this. I might do this as a pseudonym. I'm like, okay. He goes, I might pull the rug on this. I don't know if I want to finish this game, so just so you're aware. And you got to understand, I was a little bit ignorant about who they really are. I know who they are, but I don't know the details. Even though I read the book, it still wasn't quite everything I needed to know. I didn't know people were trying to interview them for years. I didn't know that they were telling everybody, no, we're never making a game. I wasn't like that. I didn't have that in my head. So, but I did know is, why me? I'm not a game designer. I never made game assets. So I better work my butt off. I better make sure I have them stay with this. So I would work almost 24 hours a day, making sure I do what he says. He's like, I need this model. I would make sure I work to give him the model. I make sure to build out the caves. I made sure to design the well house. And so after 6 months, well, let's go back a little bit. So Roberta wasn't really involved in the beginning besides maybe, giving a suggestion here and there, or I would show her a model this is the troll, and she'd be like, oh, that looks very trolly, or I show her the dwarf, and she's like, no, that's too mean of a dwarf. Should be more fat and wobbly, and so she would give comments, but she wasn't really with us every day. But Ken was 4 o'clock in the morning his time, up 5 o'clock in the morning his time, all the way to 6, 7 o'clock. So we would work long days. And I was all in. I'm all invested in it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this. And little by little, we were building out the prototype of the game. A little bit more, Roberta would give more comments. And then after 6 months, when we had a prototype built, now granted, it was I always knew we had to go back and fix the graphics. I never thought I'm going to make all the graphics for the game. I always knew that there was going to be more people coming. I just knew it. After 6 months, he goes, hey Marcus, now you can tell everybody that we're working on a game. And I'm like, yes, because can you imagine for 6 months I had to I stopped following the groups. I blocked people because I knew my mouth will talk. Yeah. It's just going to talk. So I made sure to block people and just disappear. And for 6 months, I disappeared working with him. And then I went on Twitter and I said, hey, everybody, guess what? I'm working with Ken and Roberta Williams. working on a top secret game, and we're really making a game. Take a guess the reaction I got. They thought I was lying.
Oh, really?
They thought that it was bullshit. They're like, no way you were, who are you?
Yeah, because they have not done anything.
No, you are lying. This is a made up story. You're just trying to get clicks. I go, no, I swear to you, I'm working with Ken Roberta Williams. So this guy, the Space Quest historian, messaged Ken, oh, is this true? And Ken replied, yeah, it's true. And then everybody started coming back, oh, I'm so sorry. And then the news broke that we're working with, that I'm working with Ken Roberta Williams. And so that I got kind of popular. So on my LinkedIn, I was getting all these messages, and all these people were messaging me. And one of the people that messaged me was this guy, Brian Denola, who taught me 3D modeling. And he goes, hey, Marcus, this is Brian. I'm a big fan of Ken Roberta Williams, and I just want to congratulate you on this game. And just so you know, I left AutoCAD or Delcam or whatever the company was, Autodesk. I left Autodesk, and I'm working for Unity. And I go, oh. All right, when did you start? He's like, 2 weeks ago. I go, hold the phone. Go to your boss right now and tell him you know the guy working with Ken Roberta Williams, and that is there a co-marketing opportunity there? Literally, like within hours, I'm getting messages from like top people at Unity. And from that point on, we would have weekly meetings with Unity, and then there will be like a team of like, sometimes 12 people in the meeting from Unity. And they gave us I love you, Unity. I love you. Thank you so much, Unity. Thank you. You guys have been amazing. And they helped bring Roberta back out too, because she would look and see the screen filled with all these people working on the game. And she's like, oh, wow, what's going on? Oh, hi. And then she got drawn back in. Now, the funny part is like, I really want Roberta to work on the game. I really want Roberta to work on the game. And the funny thing was, she goes, Marcus, I don't know if you really want me to work on the game. You may not like it. I'm like, no, please. She's like, you might get tortured. I go, no, it's okay. Come on. She wasn't wrong. She wasn't wrong. I definitely was tortured. I definitely had to go through hell. But it was every moment is worth it. And that's basically the story, how I met them and how, it was going to happen without me regardless. I don't, I joke around, like people ask me what's my title, and, I was an artist, now I'm marketing, I did business development, I did a lot of stuff for Cygnus, but I always joke around and I go, I'm the guy that helped bring Ken Roberta Williams out of retirement. That's my title. And,
Great. And so now let's talk a little bit about the game, probably. So in what current state is the game?
So while I was working with Ken, he would show me, he would ask me questions, what do you think this is? One of the questions he asked me, do you think kids today are going to play this game? And at the time, it was no VR. It was just a 3D game. And I go, all the Sierra fans are going to buy this game. They're going to buy it. And some of the kids are going to buy the game. But I said, if you really want this game to be loved by the kids, this has to be in VR. I said, if Sierra was here today, if this was Sierra Online, this game would be in VR. And at that moment, it was like, boom, the light bulb went on his head. And we brought this programmer, Sydney, on to convert the game into VR. And I gotta tell you, the first moment I'm looking at my graphics in VR, I'm like, oh, looking at the flower, walking around, it was just an unbelievable experience. And I said, Roberta has to see this because she's going to really love it. I loved it. I was like, this is amazing. And so that's how we became a VR game. And we're announcing a Switch version of the game. And that will be announced by IGN on the 29th. So we'll have a Switch wish list. So we have a Switch version, we have a Quest version, we have a PC version, which is going to have much higher resolution graphics, much more details. Because the Quest and the Switch is kind of like mobile processors. And we're going to be on Linux and Mac. That's currently where we're at. In terms of the game is 100% built. It's 100% playable. We are now going through what's called the polishing phase of the game. So right now we have a bunch of, I would say like 1/3 of the game fully polished, but the team is moving fast because what started off as just Ken and I, and then Ken, Roberta and I, and then Ken, Roberta and I, and Sydney has become 34 people, full-time employees, full-time independent contractors working on the game. All different people, like from artists to video editors to all these different people, but you know, bulk of it is programmers and artists currently working on the game.
So the game is based on Colossal Cave.
Yep.
How did you approach this? Did you all, I don't know, play Colossal Cave again? How close is it connected to Colossal Cave? Is it just an inspiration?
So in the beginning it was really just me. Even Roberta wasn't really giving me too much feedback. So I never really played Colossal Cave, so I played it probably now about 75 times. I watched YouTube videos on the original Colossal, and we're basing it on the 350 point, the original Don Woods, Will Crowther game. And so I had to read the words and then try to imagine what those words translate into. And it's not as easy as you think, because sometimes the words will be interpreted differently by people. So by myself, I had to try to interpret the game. And it's actually better when you have more people giving you feedback on reading that text. And once you have more people, now it's kind of a clearer, more accurate vision of what that description gives you. We are following the descriptions very closely. Is there deviation? Absolutely. Is there Roberta's touches? Absolutely. It's a reimagining of Colossal Cave by Roberta Williams. So there's a lot of, you know, her storytelling built in that classic game. But all the text descriptions, the original, are there. Like pretty much word for word are there in the game.
So, as you said, one of the main USPs of the game is that it's available in VR. VR is always, a lot of people discuss about VR, how you navigate in VR. There are a lot of different ways to do it. How do you navigate through the cave? Do you teleport or?
So we started off with teleportation, but you know, Sierra and King's Quest was always innovators. They always pushed technology. They always pushed game design to the next level. So when you work with Roberta Williams, whatever was the way, the standard, may not be the way we go forward with something. And so she's created her own control scheme. She's created her own navigation scheme for Colossal Cave. Now we also give the people the option to play it in a more traditional way, but I actually love her way of playing the game. It's different, but it makes it less nauseating, especially for an older crowd. I find like most kids don't get nauseous playing VR. I find it's more like the older crowd. And I heard something scientific about like the retina on the side of the eyes get a little weaker, so your peripheral vision causes you to have that nausea. But we make the game like really high frame rate, like buttery smooth frame rate, so that way you will not feel that nauseating experience, you know. And so it's designed to make you feel very comfortable playing the game. So we have, like I said, our own control scheme that's different than the standard you'll find in virtually all the games out there. And then we have the normal controls in VR. But I gotta be honest with you, I believe the VR game is the better game overall to play. Like I really feel like you should try to play it in VR. But if you don't want to, we have it in 3D, and we have it on the Switch, and we have it on all the other platforms.
And so the regular 3D version is just the regular controls, like with WASD and the mouse, or how do you control it?
Well, okay, again, Roberta is going to come up with her own control scheme. You can play it the regular way, but she also has one-hand control of the whole game. You can literally play with just a mouse and one-handed play the game. So we have our own control scheme that she invented.
So you can play it point-and-click style, pretty much?
Yeah.
Okay, so you really use the mouse to point where you want to go, and okay.
Yeah, but in 3D.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, interesting. It'll be really interesting to see how it plays out.
I have the demo for you to try out, so you'll get to try it out.
Awesome. So, we talked about graphics and UI, or not UI, but graphics and navigation and so on. Let's talk a little bit about sound and audio, because I don't really know anything about the game at the moment concerning audio. do you have things like, I don't know, voiceovers? Will the text be read by somebody? Will there be localization? Can you tell us anything about that?
Okay, so number one, we have an amazing voice actor that was introduced to us. He actually, Space Quest historian, introduced me to Jason Cryer. Ken had this other guy, and he's like, oh, let's use him, because, and I listened to the guy's voice, and there was nothing wrong with his voice, but Jason Cryer, when I talked to him and I gave him, I said, gave him the description of what I thought the voice should sound like, he nailed it. It was so good. And in terms of localization, yes, there will be localization. Now, will there be voiceover localization? Probably, but right now it will be just in the text will be the localization. Now, I'm going to tell you a funny story. In the beginning, I put music in the game. So when you travel around, you'll hear music, and the music will change based on the scene. Roberta's like, I don't know, Marcus. Is that the way games are today, that you have to listen to music? I said, well, I just put it in as filler for now. But I do like music in the game. She goes, I don't know. I'd rather do it more sound effects and make them feel like they're really there. So she gets really, by the way, they're very hands-on. This is not just their name on it. They are programming every day, designing every day. They're working on this game every day until it's launched. And so she would work with, a sound guy or with Ken and just go through a library of sounds. And now when you go into the game, it's you really feel immersed in the game, and you have all these different sound effects. And, I think the most haunting one for me, or the most one that gives me chills, is there's a little reference to Cedric in the game. There's an owl in the game, and you get down and you see the owl and you hear the hooting, and you kind of get chills in your spine. It's wow, that's a reference to King's Quest, the old days. And so there's layering and layering of sound that she does. She's creating that sound. She's an amazing designer. To get to work with her, sometimes 4 or 5 hours talking with her about the design of the game. She'll bring up stories about King's Quest and Phantasmagoria, and how she did Colonel's Bequest and the team and how they work. And then she'll talk about the history, and she's a big history buff. So a lot of the stuff that we do is based on history of the world that we put into the game design, and I'm learning a lot from her.
Launch date for the game. Do you have one already?
We're aiming for something to be launched fourth quarter this year.
Okay. So, and then I guess it will be available in the different stores, I guess, for the different platforms, like Steam or something like that, or do you plan anything special, or some special distribution?
As you will know, there'll be Switch,
Yes.
which will be wish listing on Switch. I believe we're going to be on Epic.
Okay.
I'm in talks with different people right now that we haven't signed any deals yet. So I could just tell you right now, definitely Switch wish list to start.
Yeah.
We're going to work with somebody on the PC distribution eventually, probably Epic.
Now, when the launch date is quite in reach, at least it's somewhere in this year probably, are you already thinking about what could be next? Because now you're a game developer in some way, or game designer. You're
going to be shocked. You're going to be shocked at what I'm going to be doing next. There's going to be, I hope. There's no guarantee in life, right? You can never promise, but I am now a game designer. I'm now a game developer, so there will be some things coming out that will blow your mind.
Is it possible that you will continue then working with Ken and Roberta, or do you think they will?
That's my goal. When I originally created the code name of the game, I called it Project Phoenix, and secretly it was Sierra 2.0. And so my goal, again, is to do whatever it is possible to keep them to make games. That is that's their gift to the world, is their game design. And I don't think it's fair for them to not keep doing it, to be honest. So should they work every day as hard as they are on Colossal Cave? No. I don't think they need to be working that hard every day. But if this game is successful, in a big way, I don't see why they would not continue to work on games. And that's the goal.
And so then the next project probably would also be something narrative, adventure-based, or are you also looking at other genres? You are not saying anything. You need to block all the groups to not say anything again. Okay, perfect. Marcus, thank you so much for telling us the whole story of the game. And,
it's pretty. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot for taking the time.
Hey, what's your party going to be again?
Party will be tomorrow.
Nice. What time?
We will be there at 5.
Is your friend Pascal going to be there?
I think he's always. You can scan
Woo, let's go.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm in Germany.
Okay.
Prost.
Prost.
Prost.